Why, hello there, I'm Professor Joel, and welcome to another episode of Planet Scooby Reviews. Today we are covering High Rise Hair Raiser, which originally aired on September 11th, 1976. This episode was requested by Victor. Thank you, Victor. Victor always leaves some amazing comments on my episode reviews. I appreciate them a lot. If you'd like to read them, go to my website. If you'd like to request an episode, go to my website. You can no longer leave episode requests on YouTube because I have a cartoon-based YouTube channel. People under the age of 13 cannot leave comments, so YouTube just disabled comments for everyone. So I have a website where you can leave a comment. I also have a Facebook page if that's your game, or you can email me. It's all located below, but basically, if you can't read it, if you're on a cell phone, just Google Planet Scooby, and it will come up in the search, and that is me. And you can leave a request or read Victor's awesome comments. Also, a shout out to John, who's been emailing me some awesome comments lately. He made a funny comment about how this episode takes place on a construction site because the gang need jobs, and this construction company hires the gang, which is quite funny because they're working after midnight, and you know, teenage kids should not be working after midnight on a construction site high up in the 20th story of a building. But his comment was also, not only did they hire these kids, which is probably illegal, they also hired the dog and gave the dog a construction hard hat helmet. So that was quite funny. Like I said, you know, this episode takes place on a construction site because the gang needs jobs. And the construction site is haunted by the specter who is 180 years old. And he's been haunting the site, scaring off the construction workers. So the gang have to get to the bottom of this mystery. If you'd like to buy this episode, it's available on this set here, the Scooby-Doo Dynamite Hour. It is episode 1 of what we know as the Scooby-Doo Show. And I am thankful for this set because it's got some pretty awesome episodes. Not only does it have this episode, but it's got many great other episodes. This is a nice return to form for Scooby. The animation is a lot better than the season before, which was the new Scooby-Doo comedy movies. This has way better animation and better stories, and you know, I kind of got sick of the guest stars and just the long kind of episodes that dragged on. These are tight and consistent episodes that just get right to the point and feature some good scares. This episode was directed by Charles A. Nichols, and yeah, I also wanted to give a shout out to Nick. Nick has also been sending me some pretty cool Scooby-Doo information, observations through Facebook. So that's enough of my jibber jabber. Let's get on with this episode. The episode begins with a bunch of construction workers working late on a construction site one night. That is until the specter of Ebenezer Crab appears and scares everyone away.
It's the specter!
Meanwhile, at Sam's Pizza, the gang figure out that they are low on funds, so they decide to hit up the Help Wanted section. There they see that a construction job is available. Ah yes, the 70s where gasoline was leaded with toxins and teenagers in high school could work past midnight on a high-rise skeleton with next to no training or safety equipment or adult supervision.
Construction workers needed, no experience necessary. That's for us. Like we gotta earn some dough before we can buy any more bread.
Also at the pizza parlor, they learn about a recent rash of mysterious safe robberies. All of the crimes that were committed as if the burglars knew the combinations to the safes. At the construction site, the gang go talk to the ACME construction company owner, Mr. Doherty. Mr. Doherty explains that the night crew has quit as a specter has been haunting the building. The reason, he suspects, is that the building site was once home to a haunted house, which has now been moved to a new location.
Yep, I've got jobs for you too. Are you willing to work night shift?
We sure are.
Can't seem to keep any men on the night shift. It's account of that specter that's been creeping around here.
That's a new one.
There used to be an old house here that folks said was haunted. Yep, but we moved it away.
Shaggy, Fred, and Scooby get to work training while Daphne and Velma head off to the newspaper library to research the haunted house. High up on the high-rise, the 19th and 20th floors to be exact, Jim Rivets and Red Sparks show the gang their job duties. As Shaggy and Scooby get to work, the Spectre appears and gives the two of them a good scare.
This is Jim Rivets, one of the few men brave enough to stay on the job.
Come on, boys. I'll show you around.
Thanks, Mr. Rivets.
You'll be working on the 19th and 20th floor.
I don't feel so good.
I hope you boys don't scare easy. Red Sparks is your foreman. He'll tell you what to do.
Come on, fellas, get a move on. The things we have to do to solve a mystery. You got the hang of it now? All right, you're on your own. Thanks.
Meanwhile, at the Daily Times library, Velma has found a newspaper article about a man named Ebenezer Crabbe, and he was accused of witchcraft as after 50 years after he moved into his home in 1820, he never seemed to age. Then in 1876, he vanished off the face of the earth, but he returned home every 20 years to get younger again. Daphne does the math and figures out that Ebenezer is 180 years old. Together with this new information, Daphne and Velma head back to the construction site to inform Freddy, Shaggy, and Scooby of their news. From there, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby decide to visit the Ebenezer old house. Meanwhile, Daphne and Freddy stay on the site to search for more clues. Arriving at Ebenezer's house, they are greeted by his great-great-great-granddaughter, Nettie Crabbe. She lets them in the house and allows them to look around.
That's Ebenezer's house?
Oh, Shaggy, this is no time to get scared. Yes? Oh, I'm not Ebenezer. I'm his great-great-great-granddaughter, Nettie Crabbe. May we have a look around this lovely old home? Why, we'd be delighted. His room is upstairs. You're welcome to look around. Ebenezer's hobby was black magic, you know.
Nettie informs them that Ebenezer is due to return at any moment, but they'd both be delighted to have them make themselves at home. Going upstairs, Shaggy and Scooby find a book on black magic and accidentally turn themselves briefly into monsters. They don't realize they've done this, and they quote the cure in the book, and they turn themselves back to human without even realizing they were once monsters. Velma finds an old trunk and also finds a piece of paper inside it. Before she can look at it, Nettie walks in and invites them in for tea.
It's almost time for Ebenezer to show up. Would you care for a cup of tea while we wait?
The gang politely decline and run out with Velma's newfound clue. Back at the construction site, the gang tell Mr. Doherty about Nettie. Instead of being angry that the gang aren't hard at work on the job site, Mr. Doherty is confused over the fact that they saw Nettie as she's been dead for at least 50 years.
Nettie Crabbe has been dead for 50 years.
Velma then shows the rest of the gang the piece of paper she found. It's a receipt for an expensive telescopic lens bought by Ebenezer Crabbe a couple months ago. So they head off to the Optical Lens Company Inc. from where it was bought. At the store, Mr. Speck, the owner, tells them that this lens is not only telescopic, but lets the person use it at night as it makes whatever is in view look like it is daytime. Mr. Speck calls it a telescopic spotter lens as it allows you to see things in the dark. The gang borrow the telescopic lens to bring to the police, but on the way there, they are frightened out of the mystery machine by the Spectre. Shaggy and Scooby take cover in a bakery, but the telescopic lens is stolen out of their hands. Back at Sam's Pizza, the gang read in the newspaper that another safe robbery has occurred. Daphne notices that the construction site is in the dead center of the robbery locations. This gives Freddy and Velma lots of ideas of what's going on. The gang then head back to the construction site and lure Ebenezer Crabbe into a trap. Nettie also shows up to the creepy party, and the trap backfires. In the end, thanks to some fresh cement spillage, Ebenezer and Nettie are literally stopped in their tracks. Unmasking the two specters, it turns out that Red Sparks, the construction worker, is Ebenezer, and Jim Rivets is Nettie.
We unmask the Spectre. It's Red Sparks. Ah, meddling kids. Jim Rivets.
During the night, they had been using the telescopic lens to watch people open safes. From there, they'd sneak into the buildings and rob the safes using the combinations they witnessed. They used the ghost story to slow down construction as progress of the building was blocking their view of the safes. While demonstrating the telescopic lens to the police by showing the Mahoney Baloney Company safe, Scooby accidentally finds all the stolen money in a plant. To reward Scooby for finding the money, the police treat Scooby to a pizza shaped like a police badge. So I give this episode a 10 out of 10. It is just perfect in every way. It's everything you want out of a Scooby-Doo episode, for me at least. It's got some funny hijinks on a construction site. It's got a creative and fun villain, or a team of villains in this case. And it's got Daphne and Velma doing some intense library research in a library, newspaper library, which I don't know if the place was open. When they focused on the building, only that library light was on. So maybe they broke in. I don't know. Maybe it's just dark early where they're at, because they also go to the lens store late at night too. And when they're working at the construction site, it's supposed to be open after midnight. So I don't know what's going on there. It's a cartoon though, so who really cares? My favorite part was when the Spectre hops on top of the Mystery Machine and just scares the jinkies out of everyone. I thought that was great. Where his head comes down over the windshield and he just growls and yells, and everyone just dashes out of the Mystery Machine. That was great. I also like Ebenezer's backstory, which is really cool. Really cool backstory. Love that a lot. If you go to my website, Planet Scooby, Victor has a short story what that is kind of basically based on. I recommend you read that comment and seek out that short story if you like this episode as well. I'll also leave a link below to that short story where you can find it in your library. And I also appreciate the lengths that these two robbers went to commit to their roles as Ebenezer and Nettie. Like Jim Rivets dressed up like this old lady and lived in this abandoned haunted house just to commit to this role. It's very funny and spooky and creepy, mentally disturbing in some ways. The construction site is also ultra creepy, and just seeing Daphne and Velma hang out in the library, well, that was kind of cool. And having the gang just at the start hanging out at the pizza parlor was a lot of fun for me. Anyway, if you'd like to recommend an episode, go to my website, Facebook, email me. Eventually I have an Instagram. Once I get that figured out, it'll come. Also, thank you for any likes. Those do help. Those help me get found. Thank you for any subscriptions. And until next time, stay spooky.
It's the Spectre!
There used to be an old house here that folks said was haunted. Yep, but we moved it away.